I didn't even want to be there. The whole idea of a blind date felt like something people did in movies when they ran out of better plot ideas. But my friend insisted, said I needed to get back out there, as if my last relationship hadn't completely drained me of the will to try again. So there I was, sitting at a small wooden table in a cozy little cafe, checking my phone every 30 seconds and already planning my polite escape. She was late. Of course she was. I stared at the menu without really reading it, pretending to be interested in the list of coffees, while quietly hoping she wouldn't show up at all. The place smelled like roasted beans and something sweet, maybe cinnamon. It should have been comforting. Instead, it just made the waiting feel longer. "Can I get you something while you wait?" I looked up, and for a second I forgot how to speak. The waitress stood there with a small, knowing smile. She wasn't just pretty in the usual way. There was something calm about her, something warm that made the whole room feel quieter. Just a coffee," I managed. "Rough start?" she asked gently. "Is it that obvious?" "A little," she said, placing the cup in front of me a minute later. "Blind date?" I gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "Yeah, my friend's idea." She nodded like she understood more than I had said. "Those can go either way." "I'm betting on terrible," I replied. She smiled again, but this time it lingered. "You never know. Sometimes the unexpected happens." Before I could say anything else, the door opened and a woman walked in, scanning the room. She looked at her phone, then at me, and I knew immediately. This was her. She walked over, sat down without much of a greeting, and immediately started talking. Not in a nervous, endearing way, in a fast, distracted way, like she had somewhere better to be. "So you're Adam, right? Or was it Alex?" "Adam," I said. "Right, sorry, it's been a long day." That was the first sign. The next 30 minutes felt like an hour. She checked her phone constantly, barely listened, and somehow turned every question into a story about herself. I tried, I really did, but it felt like talking to a wall that occasionally nodded. At some point, I stopped trying. I noticed the waitress again, moving between tables, occasionally glancing over like she could sense how badly things were going. Once, our eyes met, and she gave me the smallest sympathetic smile. It was oddly comforting. Then my date sighed loudly and looked at her phone again. "I'm sorry, but I just remembered I have an early meeting tomorrow," she said. "I should probably head out." I almost laughed. "Yeah, sure, no problem." We exchanged awkward goodbyes, and just like that, she was gone. No dramatic ending, no spark, just nothing. I sat there for a moment, staring at the empty chair, feeling that familiar disappointment settle in. Not because I liked her, but because it confirmed what I already believed, that this whole thing was pointless. "Hey." I looked up. It was the waitress again. "She left," she said, though it was obvious. "Yeah." "Bad?" I exhaled slowly. Exactly as bad as I expected. She leaned slightly against the table, lowering her voice just a bit. "If I were you, I'd stay." I blinked, confused. "Stay?" "For a little while longer," she said, a hint of something playful in her eyes. "Trust me." Before I could ask what she meant, she straightened up. "Another coffee?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, why not?" She walked away, and I sat there wondering what that was about. Maybe she was just being nice. Maybe she felt sorry for me. Or maybe I just didn't want to leave yet. The second coffee came, and this time she lingered a little longer. "So," she said, "what went wrong?" "Where do I start?" I replied. She laughed softly. "Start anywhere." And I did. I told her about the awkward silences, the constant phone checking, the feeling of being interviewed rather than talked to. She listened, actually listened. Not just nodding, but reacting, asking questions, smiling at the right moments. It felt easy. "Sounds like you dodged a bullet," she said. "Doesn't feel like it," I admitted. "Feels more like a waste of time." "Maybe not," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "How so?" She shrugged lightly. "You're still here, aren't you?" There was something in the way she said it that made my chest feel lighter. "What about you?" I asked. "You always give life advice to random customers?" "Only the ones who look like they need it," she teased. "Do I look that bad?" "A little," she said with a grin. We both laughed. Time passed without me noticing. The cafe grew quieter as the evening wore on. A few people left, the lights dimmed slightly, and somehow we were still talking. Her name was Lily. She told me she'd been working there for a couple of years, that she liked watching people, figuring out their stories. She said most dates were predictable. You could tell in the first 5 minutes how they'd end. "And ours?" I asked before I could stop myself. She tilted her head, pretending to think. "Undecided." "That's fair." There was a moment of silence, but it wasn't awkward, just calm. "You almost left," she said softly. "I know." "Why didn't you?" I looked at her, really looked at her this time. "Because you told me to stay." She smiled, but there was something deeper behind it now. "Good," she said. The owner called her from across the room, and she sighed. "Duty calls." "Of course." She turned to go, then paused. "I get off in 10 minutes, she said casually, "if you're still here." I felt something shift inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. "I'll stay," I said. She nodded, like she already knew I would, and walked away. For the first time that night, I wasn't checking the time. I wasn't planning an exit. I was just waiting. And somehow, that felt completely different. 10 minutes later, she came back. No apron this time, just her and that same warm smile. "Ready?" she asked. "For what?" She shrugged. "Let's find out." I stood up, leaving behind the table where everything had gone wrong, and somehow, everything had started to go right.